11:50, so we're running a little bit late. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? Supervisor Gerard, seconded by Supervisor Montesi. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you very much for meeting today. We've asked Jackie, the head of our HR department, to meet with us and propose two different types of performance evaluations, with the goals being to move forward in 2017 with a performance evaluation and a evaluation subcommittee to monitor those. But I'm going to turn it over to Jackie and talk to you a little bit about the research she's done. She's worked very hard on this, and hopefully today we can come out of committee with a recommendation. Jackie?
I'm going back about a year, I think we started talking about this and working on it since I've been HR director. So I tried to set up some goals for what's doable in 2017, and then things that we could prepare for during 2017 for 2018. I think we have, I want to say, around 90 out-of-unit employees, so I think that's a big chunk to bite off in the first year. So I thought maybe for 17 a good goal would be to do department head evaluations, and ahead of that maybe having some goal setting at the beginning of the year. Each department head set some goals for themselves in their department, which they could be evaluated against later in the year. I did attach a couple of different draft forms. I sent some drafts around, I think last February. There's a very short form and then one that's a little bit longer, but we didn't want to make it too cumbersome so that people don't do it. So I think if...
Jack, Mike?
Yep.
Just a question. When you say we have 90 out-of-unit employees and we're gonna, the first step would be to do just department heads.
Mm-hmm.
Who would sit down with a department head to do the evaluation?
That is something for this committee to determine.
Supervisor Montesi, that we have that a little bit later in the agenda. So what we
Okay,
wanted
all
to
right.
do first was identify the tool and then talk about the committee. So the tool that we're looking at right now is selecting one of the three forms that are in front of you that were emailed out to discuss to determine what tool we would want to use for evaluation of our department heads. And again, it would be all department heads that we were looking at.
And there's one that's specific, a goal setting tool, just to kind of help department heads, and it's labeled on the top. And then there's just a front and back performance evaluation where you would just check a box, very, very short, and then there's space for comments. And then the other one is, I think, 6 pages, but it's a little more guided for the evaluators. It defines things a little more, so I think it would make it easier for the evaluator, even though it looks longer.
So the first one that you did is goal setting for department heads.
Mm-hmm.
That would be just a guide to send out to the department heads.
Well, and I think to have, to turn in to whoever is going to be doing the evaluation. So
Right.
I would say for 2017, here's what I want HR to get accomplished.
Okay.
And then later in 2017, we can come back, just to keep us all honest.
Okay.
Come back and say, well, did she do it? Did she not do it? If she didn't, why not? Those type of things.
And
So.
if I may, Ron, a goal here will be that we have a mid-year evaluation, meet with the department head, see how things are going, and at the end of the year, that would correspond eventually in our budget season, we would then have a formal evaluation. So what we're looking for is to take an evaluation tool, and what Jackie has suggested perhaps is the one that's a little more detailed would be helpful to the department head. Eventually they will be doing reviews of their non-union appointed, or their non-union members in their office. And so this might be a nice tool for them to be able to utilize. We want to use the same format for both the department head and the employee. So that would be the end goal, is that we have consistency there.
And I would expect that whatever we use the first time around, probably we end up tweaking based on feedback of how it actually works in this environment with our people. But these are based on some templates that I've gotten from other counties and other governments. So they're, you rate the director of human resources much differently probably than the county attorney or other department heads, so they're kind of broad categories under each one.
Supervisor Brandon?
Thanks. Should we try to work on that now, like making different evaluations based on the department? Because I'm sure the employees' evaluations will differ based on what department they're in.
Well, that's why this, the longer one, it's like, it's, the categories you can apply across all of the departments, but it's not,
It's not specific to their job.
to their
Like
job, right.
Okay.
Right, like, do I have the adequate job knowledge to do my job, does the county attorney, but I think you can, I think these are written broadly enough that they can apply across the
Okay.
departments,
Okay.
but having specific goals for each department
Mhm.
would make it more customized to
specific,
what
yeah.
they're trying to accomplish in a given year.
Mhm.
So Claudia, we would, have our goal setting document with, say, our evaluation form. We'd have that for each department head for 2017 and encourage them to start working on that
Is
with their
there a
department.
spot where you go back here, like, did I meet my goals?
I think there was, and I
Or maybe
put
on
all
the
of
last
this
page
together a
it
long
could say,
time
to
ago.
what extent have previous goals been accomplished?
Mhm.
Oh, that's on the last page, Claudia, for page 3. To what extent have previous plans been carried out?
Can we change that to what extent have goals been accomplished?
Yep.
Okay. Or, I don't know, goals and plans?
Yeah, or objectives and goals, however you want to say it. Again, it's going to be a very fluid form, but certainly wanted to have it in place.
Mhm.
So how many department heads do we have? We have 90 out of unit.
Amanda, do you know how many department heads?
30, I mean, I'm just
something.
trying to get
Yeah.
roughly 30, so we're talking about the first time we do this, the first brush in mid-season this year will be approximately 30.
I would say that ballpark.
And we also recognize, Ron, and that's on here to discuss as well, as an option, or an opportunity, whether that training be from Jackie or bringing someone else in to provide training to our department heads on how to fill out, how to encourage and, cultivate the world of performance evaluations within their departments.
Well, the first ones you do with the department heads, they're gonna get a pretty good feeling of
Right.
what you think and how you think,
Mhm.
I mean, as you look through some of this, for instance, just as an example, I chuckle at that, it says, quality of work, and, down at the bottom, the number 1 rated, excessive errors and mistakes, very poor quality. Well,
Right.
gonna have to be a stand-up guy or gal to make that out.
Jackie, do you have a recommendation on what form you feel our department heads would be more comfortable with and would excel with?
I don't, but like I said, I think the longer one, even though it looks longer, I don't think it's more work for them, it just provides more guidance.
Mhm.
And what is it, on the other one, outstanding, exceeds standards, meet standards. I think those are a little more subjective, where this gives it an example of what it means under each category. It's more reading, but it's not more work or more writing, so.
I do like the longer one. I mean, if I had to sit with someone,
So do I hear that in a form of a motion, Ron? Step 1 is pick a
I
template.
would move that for discussion.
There's seconded by Supervisor Gerard. Any discussion?
Sounds good.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Too late, Craig, Gary.
No,
Do you have a comment, Craig?
So that's the longer one's this one?
Correct.
Yeah, that is.
Okay, so now we have a tool. Our next question, in front of us is the group that would do the evaluations of the department heads. And again, that tool being a fluent tool as we start to utilize it. But we had discussions about, is that a subcommittee, is that your personnel committee? Is it a subcommittee of personnel, or is it this group, or a completely different group? So wanted to have some discussions around that. I've heard some suggestions that it be our county administrator, our chairman of the board, your chair and vice chair of personnel and finance, and then an additional supervisor. That obviously it can change. It can be this group, it could be whatever group, but in terms of that discussion, we need to figure that out, because it can't be the whole board.
Two things. I think included with what we just said, the longer form, this goal setting for department heads has to be part of that too.
Yes.
I think. And, you know, we may have a new county administrator next year.
Good.
You know, we may have a new county administrator next year that really doesn't, you know, is gonna have he or her hands full.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably, I mean, my thought was that each department, each chairman of a department, you know, chairman of the county supervisor should be included in that review, and maybe one other person, whether that other person is the administrator or a member of this committee.
So what your suggestion is the chairman, the
For instance,
county
like the
administrator
health department, Sokol's head of
and
health,
then,
and he should
Okay.
be one of the guys that are doing the evaluation.
okay.
I mean, I think as you're chairman of any committee, monthly
Should
before
know.
the resolutions come out, you're sitting with that
point.
person and.
Oh, yeah, you don't want it too big, but you want people who understand the operations of the department.
And maybe a person from this committee, you can divvy it up. I mean, I don't know, there's 5 or 6 of us on this committee.
Okay.
We can all be involved in the process,
Okay.
but not specifically for every single one.
Ron, the first year is going to be pretty subjective. Once you get into having them work to goals, it gets a lot easier the successive years, because then everybody they'll get to set their goals along with management. They'll get to set their goals for the upcoming year. So that's what you can judge them on. You know, that you want to have realistic goals. I think the first time we do this is going to be kind of subjective.
Yeah.
You were going to kind of talk to them and say, okay, my opinion is, yeah, you're doing a good job. But as you go along with this, and once you start setting goals, you know that you'll set things that are departmentalized, so they'll have goals for the department, which will include safety and this and that and another thing. So I think the first year is going to be a little, you know, the first time we go through it, but then I think when you start the second year, you'll hand them you're going to hand them an evaluation form and say, okay, now set your goals. We want to know, and here's your categories, like Jackie's got laid out. Here's your goals for the next year, and you got to fit within these categories. And then that way, going forward, it'll be a lot easier to evaluate.
Work into,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
department heads
Yeah.
will work into,
Yeah.
and
And
key people.
And I like the idea of bringing in somebody from maybe the outside, unless, you know, if we get a lot of pushback, maybe we need to go, there's a lot of people come in and talk about these methods out there. I mean, I
You're
know
referring to training.
where I came from, you know, every once in a while we'd go off-site and learn how to do this stuff. So, but that system was in place for a long time.
So, Ron, if I could just recap your suggestion, then it's to have the chairman or chairperson of every committee sit on their respective evaluation team. We would rotate our group here. We can look at the department heads and assign based on maybe committee assignments, interest, knowledge, things like that. We could work on that along with our county with the chairman of the board. And I think HR really needs to be part of that process. I think it's crucial that Jackie be involved in that.
I mean, Dan is chairman of the airport, or the facilities. I'm a member of that committee, so both of us could probably sit there with Jackie, or you're a member of the facilities too. So, I mean, there's a way of including not only the chairman of that particular committee, but committee members.
How does the committee feel about that, Supervisor Bramer?
On the team, would we have the administrator, I'm sorry, did you say that?
Yeah.
And what is happening with our administrator status?
Pardon me? I didn't hear what you said.
What is happening with hiring an administrator?
I plan on continuing on until the board makes up their mind if they want to go out and hire an administrator. So that's a board decision.
would you continue to go on after,
Yeah,
I mean, when you're not chairman anymore?
I told Supervisor Conover that I would be around to continue this if that's what the board wanted. But if the board wants to go hire a full-time administrator, that's fine too.
So that sounds like perhaps it's a discussion that needs to take place at personnel, and not at performance evaluation. So that being said, can we just make that an additional amendment or addendum to the resolution? We can work together on the way that would fall with our 30 department heads. So that, do we need a motion for that? No, we'll just make it part. And then lastly, the timing of the evaluations, we talked about doing one mid-year and then a final. Eventually what we would like this to do is correspond with budget season, so that recommendations can be made regarding increases or flat salaries, whatever needs to happen at that juncture. And I would defer to Jackie on that timetable in terms of when those evaluations would be done.
I'm not part of the budget process, so.
Probably if you started,
Timing would
if you said March 1st you would start, you know, you gotta go through 30. You might, I don't know, Frank, when do you start your budget evaluations? In June?
Well, as far as salaries, it's September, October.
Oh, okay,
So if we had a final performance work plan deadline, say of October 1, would that work in terms of the budget? Okay, so if we put these in place for January of 2017 with our department heads, did a mid-year review, say by June 1st, and final review by October 1st? What do you think of that, Jackie?
What was the middle date?
June 1?
Why are we doing that mid, just for this first year?
No, most performance plan models have a mid-year review. Because if you think about it, it gives an employee an opportunity to say, I'm meeting my goals, I need help here, I'm not able, especially when you're supervising your employees under your department. And then that way they know, you know, what they need to work on, what they're doing really good at, where they're at, and the end-year review won't come as such a surprise. But it provides a moment, or halfway through, to be able to do some counseling and talk about issues that are important.
Maybe we should do April and October.
Okay.
yeah.
April and October? Okay.
It's 6.
So April 1 for mid-year. This year we'll start it in January, and then October 1 for final, to be completed by, to assist in the budget process. That makes sense? Is that, any other comments regarding that?
So, let's assume, we do a review of the department head and they're meeting their goals. What kind of guidance does that give Frank on budget? Are we gonna say, if you're meeting your goals, you get a 2% raise. If you're not meeting your goals, you get a 1%? Are we gonna get involved in that part of it too?
I think with Jackie, and this is on the agenda, actually, it's good timing, Ron, to bring this up, because what we had talked about was in 2018, to try to look into the future, many other counties have it tied into salary adjustments and a much more complicated schedule that certainly works well in other communities, but we really wanted to crawl before we started to walk and eventually run. So I think that's going to take some work with the budget team and with HR to determine down the road how we can coordinate reviews to salary adjustments. Is that correct, Jackie? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking that we would have to work on that, because other counties have a much more formal compensation plan for their out-of-unit and salary bands, and they'll say, okay, for 2015 or 16, everyone will get a 2% cost of living increase, and based on the financial picture, you're eligible for up to a 4% merit, and then they take the feedback from your review, and like you were saying, if your ratings were mostly 2s, maybe you only get 2%. If you got all exceeds, maybe you get 4%. But I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, yeah.
But this gets our feet wet.
Oh, yeah.
And I think gives Frank a tool in the budget team to look at as, you know, moving forward for department heads, and then hopefully in 2018, we've got it rolled out for all 90 out-of-unit employees. And then, you know, with Jackie's help, of course, being able to look at tying it into that salary structure. But I can't imagine this happening in 2017. So, and then the last, is everyone comfortable then with that timeline?
Yeah.
Then the last issue is just training, and I think that, you know, we can defer that over to HR and see really if that's something we can handle internally, or if we need to bring someone in for, as we start to roll that out to our department heads,
Okay.
or those employees.
I can come up with some, like written materials, kind of.
Mhm.
Here's a handout, and, you know, see if there's an interest in like a training in a room setting, or if it's just people are gonna have specific questions. Because I think a lot of departments currently do some type of goal setting and evaluations for, either state agencies or as part of funding that they get from grants, they have to provide some metrics and some feedback, so some of them may be well versed at this and not need a lot of help, where I think some of our smaller departments will probably be the ones, so it might be a one-on-one.
Maybe the first training is for us.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
the group that's gonna do the first brush through it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't mind sitting down with someone, Jackie or, you know, whoever, and say, okay, you're gonna be doing the first, evaluations, and here's some of the things.
I think if we're gonna bring in someone to do training, we should have the department heads there too.
Right.
Well, it sounds like then we've, established our grading or our evaluation tool, a timeline, subcommittees will work on, and hopefully be able to have this prepared for the December board meeting for approval from the full board for consideration, and then in January, look at starting the evaluation forums with our department heads, and, you know, seeing how that goes, and then do we wanna set a goal for when we'll be able to have it for the employees within those department heads at this juncture, or wait?
Well, I think before each, department head evaluates their employees, I think there are some job specs that are from the 80s that have no mention of using a computer, still reference typewriters. So I feel like during 2017, getting the department heads to make sure that the job specs for all of their positions are up to date, so that we can measure the employees against
that
that.
actual
Yeah,
certification,
and I've talked to Trish about that, and she's on board, and is, you know, 'cause they have to be adopted by civil service. But I think that's gonna be time consuming, probably more so than doing the evaluation, getting some of these really old, they name office machines that I've never heard of.
Well, if we can get that up to date, then in 2017, we could start
Yeah.
2018 with the rest of it. So, I think those are good goals. Is there anything else that should come before the committee today? No? Okay, a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second by Kramer and I'm Hussey. Thank you, and great job, Jackie.